welcome to another video. Today I want to talk about some diminished stuff, some different diminished concepts, some chords, some scales, some arpeggios, and some triad ideas that really help me get the sound into my playing. If you already understand all the basic diminished fundamentals I'm going to go through, skip the video till a bit later on. I'll put a little time down here where you can do that, and then you can see the concepts and little ideas that I sort of came up with to help me get the sound into my playing. Hopefully you'll get something from that if you understand all the basic stuff. Cool. So for everyone else who has never really delved too deeply into diminished stuff, the most basic fundamental thing about a diminished chord is just the basic diminished triad, which is 1 flat 3 flat 5. It looks like that. Okay, so that's 1 flat 3 flat 5, G, B flat, D flat. However, when we talk about diminished stuff, usually we talk about diminished seventh. So we have to add the diminished seventh onto that, which is a double flattened seventh. In this case it's E, so put that on the bottom there just for now. So the reason it's a double flattened seventh is because if it was a normal flattened seventh we'd have a minor 7 flat 5 chord, and we can't call it a sixth because it's a diminished seventh, so there has to be a seventh of some kind in there, so hence the double flattened seventh. Cool, so everyone's familiar with that shape. We've all seen that. We can move that around in minor thirds and we get the same notes occurring but in different orders. It's a completely symmetrical chord because every interval is a minor third apart. So we've got E, B flat, D flat, G. Make sense? Cool. So if I move that up 4 frets, I get G, D flat, E, B flat, another 4, B flat, E, G flat, D flat, D flat, G, B flat, E, and then I'm back at the first one. Cool. So that little track that you saw at the beginning, I was playing over a static vamp, and what that was a G7 flat 9 vamp, and you might think, well, what's that? Well, a G7 flat 9 is all the same notes as an A flat diminished chord. Ooh, so that's an interesting one. So if I play this, if I play it slightly differently, if I play it like that, hopefully you can see there. If I play it like that to start with, that's just a G7 chord with the root on the top, so I've got flat 7, 3rd, 5th, root. Just that, but with the 5th here. Bog standard G7, 5th's there instead. But if I flatten the 9th, put flat 9 on top, it's just that, it's the same thing, look. Okay, so G7 flat 9 and A flat diminished are the same chord, because there's our A flat, look. These are the flat 9. So this is where the two diminished scales come in. So for every one of those chords that are movable, we can view them as a 7 flat 9 or a diminished. So that would be G7 flat 9 or A flat diminished. That would be B7 flat 9 or B diminished. That would be D flat 7 flat 9 or D diminished. That would be E 7 flat 9 or F diminished. They're the same thing, they're just starting on different notes. So that's the exact same thing for the two scales, the half whole diminished scale and the whole half. Generally when we talk about static diminished chords, so 7 flat 9s and stuff like vamps that I played on at the start of this video, then we talk about the half whole diminished scale. That's usually the one because we're thinking of it from G. So this is the scale, so I start the same scale, the same notes and everything, but I start there, play this. That's now the whole half because I'm starting on A flat, you see? Because it can only be one of two interval structures. It can be half whole, half whole, half whole. If I start on the next note along, it's going to be whole, half, whole, half. So they're the same thing, and they're totally movable like the chords are. The same thing for the arpeggio. So if I play, if I think of it as a 7 flat 9, which is the easiest way to think of it as a guitar player from an arpeggio point of view, because I can play a dominant 7th arpeggio like a G7 arpeggio, which hopefully you all know, and then all I have to do from there, if I raise the root, I get the flat 9, or the flat 2, whatever, you know. So if I just raise all the roots to 3, there's one there, one there, one there. So that's an A flat diminished arpeggio, diminished 7th arpeggio, or a G7 flat 9 arpeggio. You can think of it however you want. Totally movable, you can play them wherever you want. You know, in any position. You know, so that's the cool thing about diminished. It's all symmetrical. So any musical idea that you play, you can move it around in minor thirds. So if I take something simple like I don't know, I can take that exact same idea. It wasn't quite that, but something similar. Then I can use the same rhythmic idea, but with different notes. But I don't really have to think about what those notes are. I mean, whether you should or not's a different matter, but you don't have to. So that's one way to instantly get a lot out of your diminished stuff, is just to move the same ideas around and build motifs on those ideas. And then you can do things like what Scott Henderson and the guys do, where they take things like the minor pentatonic scale and just miss notes out, and then they end up with this kind of interesting sort of diminished sound, which is the diminished scale, but you can relate it to a pattern you're more familiar with. So what Scott does, he plays this a lot. So you've got the minor third, then the root, then the flat 7, then the 5, then the flat 5, then the flat 3, then the flat 9, then the flat 7, then the double flat 7th, then the flat 5, then the flat 3, then the 1. And he does it with a lot of whammy banjo. And obviously that's all movable. That kind of thing, you know. So that's a cool little movable idea that he does. So now we know that. That opens up the door for all sorts of things. You can move the arpeggios around. Whatever. So we've got 7 flat 9, we've got diminished. Same thing, semitones apart. Hopefully that's easy enough to understand. You can take any diminished chord and move any of the notes a semitone down and you'll get the dominant 7th, you know. So if I do this, move that down, I get E7, move the B down, I get B flat 7, move the D down, I get D flat 7, move the A flat down, G7. So hopefully you can see the dominant 7th diminished relationship there between the two. So that's useful to know as well, the relationship was with the dominant 7 and the flat 9, because that means you can also take any dominant 7 idea that you've got, flatten the 9th, and that also will work, you know, especially in a 7 flat 9 context. You play that. Slightly out of tune, but you see what I mean. That was more just like dominant 7th stuff, bluesy stuff, but then with that flat 9 in there, and that instantly gives you that sound as well. Cool. So onto this stuff that that I found really useful when trying to implement some of this stuff. The one thing I realised was that you can build triads, major triads, off each one of the chord tones. So I could build a major triad off G, off B flat, off D flat and E. Then I realised you can also build minor ones as well, minor triads off each one of those. And the reason you can do that is because all of the notes from those are contained within the half whole scale, or the whole half, depending on where you think of it from. They're all in there, you know. So you can start to create interesting lines. Michael Brecker does that exact thing on some skunk funk when he plays this. He plays that line, or something very similar to that. So what he's essentially doing is playing G, major, B flat, D flat, E, back to G, and he's putting the 13 or the double flat 7 or whatever on top. That was played on the saxophone, you know, which is actually even more mind-blowing. But that's all he's doing there, he's moving a major triad through the different chord tones. You can do it with minor triads as well. You can combine the two and get more interesting lines like these kind of things. That's like an E minor 7 technically, and then B flat, landing on the double flat 7, B flat major, that kind of idea. I wouldn't not play that kind of thing probably if I was just thinking of the scale. A lot of guys fall into the trap of just, oh, it's symmetrical, so I'll play this, you know. That kind of thing, which is cool, but it's very predictable, you know. Whereas with more of the triad ideas, you can do stuff that you wouldn't necessarily ordinarily play. You can take any triad shape, minor into major. You can take the more obvious, you know, any you can think of really. Very formulaic and obvious, but I was just playing just triads, major, minor triads there, and believe it or not, all of that is going to fit over your G7 flat 9 vamp, you know. Now you might not be playing over a G7 flat 9 vamp all the time. You might just be playing over a G dominant chord. Cool, use it there then. All you're doing is that flat 9 is just an extra tonality, an extra sound. Plus there's lots of other uses for, you know, diminished stuff. I mean, the G7 flat 9 chord, as you probably know, is used often as a 5 chord in like a harmonic minor thing, or like a minor 2-5-1, you know, blue bossa. Where traditionally people would play minor 7 flat 5, then Phrygian dominant over that, and then back to the C minor, or the C minor major 7 or whatever. So that's it in a more of a functional harmony sense. But in a static sense, you can use it wherever the hell you like. Anytime there's a dominant chord, stick it in there. Again, Scott Henderson, Oz Noy, a lot of the more modern guitar players. Larry Carlton does it quite a bit as well. Robin Ford uses it all the time. All the time. He uses it going from chord 1 to chord 4 in a blues a lot as well. So he does this kind of thing, you know. On to chord 4, you know, in the blues. It can be used in a plethora of different ways, from metal, neoclassical stuff, to gypsy jazz. Gypsy jazz guys use it a lot. You know, they'll use it like minor swing with that E7 flat 9 chord there. You know, you've heard that already. That used there resolves perfectly to the minor 6. So tons and tons of different things you can do and explore with the sound. So we'll wrap it up there, guys. Thanks for watching. If there's anything else you'd like me to cover on this, or any questions, drop a comment below. If you've enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. I'll be doing a few more videos over the coming weeks. Cool, see you in the next one. Cheers, bye.